Queen Bella stood before the vanity in her chambers, watching her handmaiden fasten the final pearl button on her midnight blue nightgown. The silk clung to her curves like a promise that would never be kept. 7 years of these preparations. 7 years of becoming a ghost in gilded rooms. "You look radiant, Your Majesty," the girl whispered. "Perhaps tonight." Perhaps. Bella's reflection showed copper hair that caught firelight, green eyes that had forgotten how to spark with hope. What else could she say? That she'd stopped believing in perhaps somewhere around year 3? The door flew open. Her sister Lily swept in, all dark curls and defiant energy, clutching a crystal vial filled with shimmering liquid. "I brought you something," Lily announced. "A fertility tonic from the Moon Witches. It'll help you finally conceive." Bella's jaw tightened. "Lily, I don't need." 7 years, Bella. 7 years. Lily's eyes blazed with protective fury. "The court whispers that you're—" "I know what they call me. The Barren Queen." She'd heard it in corridor shadows, felt it in pitying stares from noble mothers who bounced fat babies on their hips. She'd watched those women at garden parties, the effortless way they stroked a cheek or tucked a blanket. Such simple gestures that looked like sorcery to her, an impossible gift forever out of reach. "Then let me help you prove them wrong." Lily pressed the vial into her palm. "You'd be extraordinary, Bella. I've seen you with the village children." "Stop." The word cracked between them. Bella softened. "Thank you, but no fertility magic can fix a marriage bed that remains cold as winter stone." But she couldn't say the rest, that her husband had never touched her, that she remained as untouched as her wedding night. The shame coiled in her chest, a serpent she'd learned to feed in silence. She pocketed the vial. A servant appeared at the door. "It's time, Your Majesty." Bella rose, squaring her shoulders. 7 years had taught her one brutal truth: dignity could be wielded like a blade. The walk to the Lycan King's chambers stretched longer each month. Through the portrait gallery where painted eyes judged. Past the corridor where moonlight pooled like spilled milk. Worst of all, past the nursery that stood empty, waiting for children who would never come. She paused in that doorway tonight, torturing herself with visions of cribs and laughter, her pulse thundering in her throat. What if tonight is different? What if Eric is waiting? What if he finally sees me? She crushed the thought like a dying ember. She'd been 20 when they'd married, terrified, hopeful, young enough to believe in fairy tales. When Eric had taken her hand during the ceremony, electricity had shot through her entire body. "Mate," something ancient had whispered. "Yours." Then he'd released her hand and escorted her to separate chambers. "Our marriage serves the kingdom," he'd said, voice carved from ice. "The alliance is secured. That is sufficient." But it wasn't sufficient. Not for a kingdom demanding heirs. Not for the contract stipulating they would try. Not for her traitorous heart that wanted impossible things. A husband who looked at her like she was more than a political ornament, and a child to pour all this useless love into. So once a month, as their agreement dictated, she walked to his chambers. And once a month, nothing happened. Tonight, she pushed open his door with hands that barely trembled anymore. Inside, the Lycan King lay sprawled across his massive bed, one muscled arm thrown over his face. Moonlight carved shadows across his bare chest. He was breathtaking, brutal masculine beauty that made her ache. And on his nightstand sat an empty vial. Bella lifted it with shaking fingers, recognition dawning like a knife between her ribs. Sleeping draught. Strong enough to fell a warhorse. He hadn't been avoiding her. He'd been drugging himself unconscious to escape her touch. The morning after finding the sleeping draught, Bella attended court with a smile painted across her face like war paint. The throne room glittered with nobility, silks and jewels and predatory eyes that tracked her every movement, searching for weakness. She gave them none. Years of practice had made her an expert at hiding bleeding wounds. "Your Majesty," Lady Cordelia swept into a curtsy that barely concealed contempt. "How lovely you look, though you seem tired. Perhaps the nights are taxing." The nearby ladies tittered behind their fans. Bella recognized the game. They all knew. Somehow, they always knew when queens failed at their most fundamental duty. The concerns of the kingdom do keep me wakeful, Bella replied smoothly. Though I'm certain you understand little of such burdens, Lady Cordelia. She moved past before the woman could respond, but the whispers followed like carrion birds. 7 years. No heir. What good is a barren queen? Bella's fingers tightened on her skirts. She wanted to scream that it wasn't her failing, that she would have given anything to fulfill her role. But what could she say? That her husband rendered himself unconscious rather than touch her? That humiliation was better kept private. That afternoon, she visited the village as she did every week. Children swarmed her immediately, grubby hands reaching, bright faces tilting up like flowers seeking sun. Your Majesty! Your Majesty! Watch me! A boy of perhaps 6 executed a clumsy cartwheel. Magnificent, Thomas. Bella laughed, and for these stolen moments, the ache in her chest eased. She helped distribute bread from the castle kitchens, braided a little girl's hair, listened to a mother's concerns about her son's fever. This was what she was meant for. She felt it in her bones, the fierce, protective love that had nowhere to go. She would have been a good mother. She would have loved with every piece of herself. You're so natural with them, Lily said quietly, appearing at her elbow. It's cruel, what's happening to you? Bella's throat tightened. Don't. The court is circling like wolves. There's talk of annulment. Of Eric taking a second wife who can. I said don't. But Bella's voice cracked. She pressed the fertility tonic into her palm through her pocket, feeling its cool weight. Tonight. I'll try again tonight. Lily's expression shifted to something calculating. There might be another way to help. Eric's been taking suppressants, hasn't he? To control the Lycan instincts. Bella stared. How did you? I have my sources. Lily's smile turned sharp. What if instead of a fertility tonic for you, we gave him something stronger, to help him overcome whatever's holding him back? The suggestion hung between them like forbidden fruit. Wrong, perhaps. But after 7 years of humiliation, of empty arms and emptier chambers, desperation had worn Bella's morals thin as parchment. Yes, she whispered. Yes, whatever it takes. The grand ballroom blazed with 1,000 candles, their light catching on crystal chandeliers and the jewels adorning the throats of visiting dignitaries. Bella stood at the edge of the dance floor in a gown of deep emerald silk that made her copper hair look like living flame. She'd dressed to be seen tonight, to be wanted. Eric hadn't looked at her once. She watched him move through the crowd, tall, commanding, devastating in black formal wear that emphasized his warrior's build. He bowed to Lady Marguerite, led her onto the floor with practiced grace. Then the Duchess of Wintermere. Then some simpering baroness whose name Bella couldn't recall through the red haze building behind her eyes. Everyone but his wife. Your Majesty. A smooth voice at her elbow. You look like a woman in need of champagne. Bella turned to find Victor Ashford smiling at her, the diplomat from the Southern Territories, all golden charm and knowing eyes. Dangerous, Lily had called him. The kind of man who collected secrets like other men collected swords. Lord Ashford. She accepted the glass he offered. How perceptive. I prefer Victor, if you'll allow it. He clinked his glass against hers, holding her gaze a beat too long. And I can't help but notice the Lycan King seems determined to dance with every woman in this room except the most beautiful one. Heat crept up Bella's neck. My husband is fulfilling diplomatic obligations. Is that what we're calling it? Victor's smile turned sharp. Forgive my boldness, Your Majesty, but the entire court knows your marriage is a farce. 7 years without an heir? That's not diplomacy. That's cruelty. Bella should have walked away. Should have cut him with a royal dismissal. Instead, she drained her champagne and met his eyes. What do you want, Lord Ashford? Victor. He stepped closer, voice dropping to an intimate murmur. And I want to make you an offer. You need a child. I could give you one. Shock stole her breath. You're suggesting. A single night. Discretion guaranteed. 9 months later, you present the kingdom with an heir. Problem solved. His hand brushed her waist. I promise I'd make it memorable. Bella's mind reeled. It was mad. Treasonous. And yet the temptation coiled through her like poison honey. She could finally be a mother. The whispers would stop. She could hold a baby in her arms and... A growl ripped through the ballroom. Bella looked up to find Eric crossing the floor toward them with lethal intent. His eyes had gone full Lycan, burning amber, pupils blown wide. The crowd scattered from his path like birds before a storm. Remove your hand from my wife. The words came out guttural, barely human. Now. Victor smiled lazily, but Bella felt him tense. Your Majesty, we were merely conversing. I can smell your intention on her skin. Eric's voice dropped to something that made Bella's primitive hindbrain scream danger. Touch her again and I'll rip your throat out with my teeth. Eric. Bella grabbed his arm, feeling corded muscle trembling beneath her fingers. Stop. You're making a scene. His head snapped toward her, and for one breathless moment, she saw hunger in his eyes. Raw. Desperate. The same pull she'd felt at their wedding, magnified 1,000 times. Then he wrenched away from her touch like she'd burned him. Stay away from him, he bit out. Stay away from every man in this room. Or what? The words escaped before Bella could stop them. You'll actually acknowledge I exist? You'll finally touch me like a husband should. Something broke in his expression, anguish so profound it staggered her. Then he turned and strode from the ballroom, leaving shocked silence in his wake. Bella stood trembling, Victor forgotten, the entire court staring. And for the first time in 7 years, she wondered if perhaps her husband's cruelty wasn't cruelty at all. Perhaps it was something far more dangerous. Perhaps it was restraint. 4 days passed without a single glimpse of the Lycan King. Eric had locked himself in the North Tower, the ancient wing of the castle reserved for Lycan transformation chambers. Bella heard the rumors whispered by servants. Howling that shook the stones. Furniture shattered. The guards posted outside his door looked haunted, refusing to meet her eyes when she inquired. He's fighting it, one finally muttered. Fighting the instinct. It's killing him, Your Majesty. Bella stood in the corridor outside his chambers on the 4th night, heart hammering. She could hear movement inside. Ragged breathing. The scrape of claws on stone. You can't keep doing this. Lily appeared beside her, pressing a vial into her palm. This one was darker than the first, midnight blue, swirling with silver light. This is a stronger suppressant. He's been taking them for years, but after what happened at the ball, he needs something more potent. Bella stared at the vial. How do you know about the suppressants? I pay attention. Lily's expression was unreadable. The Lycan nature wants to claim its mate. He's been poisoning himself to resist it. This will help him regain control. Why would he resist? The question tore from Bella's throat. If we're fated mates, if he feels the pull too, why does he act like touching me would destroy him? I don't know. Lily squeezed her hand. But if you want answers, you'll have to go in there and give him this. He won't survive another night like this. The guards stepped aside at Bella's command, though their expressions said she was mad. Perhaps she was. Perhaps 7 years of rejection had finally broken something essential in her. She pushed open the door. The room was wrecked. Claw marks gouged the walls. The bed was shredded, curtains torn down. And in the center of the devastation stood Eric, bare-chested and gleaming with sweat, hands braced on what remained of his desk. His head snapped up at her entrance. Get out. No. Bella stepped inside, closing the door behind her. His eyes were still that burning amber, pupils slit like a wolf's. She'd never seen him like this. Wild, barely contained. Beautiful and terrifying. Bella. Her name came out strangled. You don't understand. I can't. I can barely. Lily sent this. She held up the vial with shaking hands. A stronger suppressant. It'll help. Something flickered across his face. Relief? Suspicion? Give it to me. Then leave. Please. She crossed to him, each step feeling like walking a blade's edge. Up close, she could see the tension carved into every line of his body. The way his muscles trembled with restraint. He smelled like pine and smoke and something darker, something that made her blood sing. Take it, she whispered, holding out the vial. His fingers brushed hers as he took it. That single touch sent electricity arcing between them, the mate bond snapping taut. Eric gasped, nearly dropping the vial. I'm sorry, he said hoarsely. For everything. You deserve so much more than. Then give me more. The words escaped before she could stop them. Stop running. Stop hiding. Just tell me the truth. For a moment, she thought he might. His hand reached toward her face, trembling. Then he pulled back, uncorked the vial, and drank it in one swift motion. You should go, he said, voice already rough with something that wasn't quite control. Before. But Bella was done running. Done with 7 years of questions. She stayed exactly where she was, watching him, waiting. Whatever happened next, she would finally have her answer. The change came over Eric in waves. First, his breathing deepened. Then his pupils dilated further, swallowing the amber until his eyes were black pools of hunger. His hands curled into fists at his sides, claws extending. Bella. Her name was a warning. A plea. Run. But she'd spent 7 years running from this moment. No. You don't understand what Lily gave me. His voice fractured, becoming something between man and beast. That wasn't a suppressant. It was, oh gods. He doubled over, a sound tearing from his throat that was pure animal need. When he straightened, the last vestiges of control had burned away from his expression. What remained was primal. Possessive. Mate. Mine, he growled. Then he was on her. His mouth crashed against hers with 7 years of starvation behind it. Bella gasped and he consumed the sound, one hand fisting in her copper hair, the other spanning her waist. He kissed her like he was dying and she was air itself, desperate, devouring, perfect. The mate bond exploded between them. It felt like lightning in her veins, like recognition at a cellular level. Every nerve ending screamed yes. This, him, finally. Bella kissed him back with equal hunger, nails raking down his bare chest, drawing thin lines of red. He snarled approval against her mouth. 7 years, he panted, trailing biting kisses down her throat. 7 years I've wanted this. Wanted you. You have no idea. His hands found the laces of her gown. One sharp tug and fabric tore. Bella should have been shocked. Should have been afraid of this wild creature who'd forgotten gentleness. Instead, she arched into his touch, shameless. Then take me, she breathed. I'm yours. Something shattered in him at those words. He lifted her like she weighed nothing, carrying her to what remained of his bed. The shredded sheets felt decadent against her bare skin as he covered her body with his. I can't be gentle, he warned, even as his hands roamed her curves with reverent hunger. Not tonight. Not after. I don't want gentle. Bella pulled him down, biting his lower lip. I want everything you've been denying me. Eric groaned, a sound of pure male surrender. Then he was claiming her, and coherent thought fractured into sensation. The stretch of him, the overwhelming fullness. The way he whispered her name like a prayer against her skin. His hands everywhere, possessive, worshipful, starving. She wrapped her legs around his waist and met him thrust for thrust, 7 years of loneliness burning away in the inferno between them. When his fangs grazed her throat, she tilted her head in offering. Do it, she gasped. Complete the bond. His teeth sank into the junction of her neck and shoulder. White-hot pleasure pain detonated through her, the mate bond snapping fully into place. She felt everything, his love, his anguish, his desperate need. The curse he'd been fighting. The sacrifice he'd been making. Eric, she sobbed, falling apart in his arms. He followed her over the edge with a roar that shook the windows, collapsing against her as the bond settled like molten gold in her chest. For long moments, they simply breathed together. His weight pressed her into the mattress, solid and real. 7 years of ghosts, finally made flesh. "I love you," he whispered against her hair. "I've loved you since the moment I saw you. Bella, I'm so sorry." But she silenced him with a kiss, tasting salt. Whether tears were his or hers, she couldn't tell. It didn't matter. Nothing mattered except this. They were finally, completely, irrevocably bound. Bella woke to an empty bed and the sound of retching from the adjoining washroom. She sat up, pulling the torn sheets around herself, body deliciously sore in ways that made her flush. Sunlight streamed through the destroyed curtains. Morning. They'd made love through the entire night, the bond singing between them with every touch. "Eric." She padded to the washroom door. "Are you?" He emerged looking wrecked. Pale. His eyes had returned to their normal stormy gray, but horror lived in them now. When he saw her, he flinched. "No," he breathed. "No, no, no. What have I done?" Ice flooded Bella's veins. "What?" "I wasn't supposed to." He backed away from her, hands shaking. 8 years. I only had to wait 2 more years. Just 2 more, and we would have been. He choked on the words. "Gods, Bella. I'm so sorry." "Sorry." The word felt like a slap. "You're sorry we finally." "You need to leave." His voice turned desperate. "Now. Before they realize." Before who realizes? But Eric had turned away, bracing himself against the wall like a man drowning. The bond between them pulsed with his anguish, his terror, and underneath it all, resignation. Like he'd already lost something precious. Bella fled. She found Lily in her chambers, pacing. Her sister's face lit up when she entered. "Did it work? Did you, oh?" Her eyes dropped to the claiming mark on Bella's throat. "You're bonded." "What did you give him?" Bella's voice shook. "He said it wasn't a suppressant." "That you?" "It was an amplifier." Lily met her gaze without shame. "He's been poisoning himself with suppressants for years, keeping the bond dormant. I gave him something that would override his control, force him to finally claim what was his." The betrayal stole Bella's breath. "You drugged him. You made him." "I freed him from whatever curse he was under," Lily snapped. 7 years, Bella. 7 years you suffered. I did what needed to be done. He didn't want this." Tears burned Bella's eyes. "Whatever he was protecting me from, you've destroyed it." He looked at me like I was, her voice broke. Like I'd killed him. 3 weeks later, Bella stood in her chambers with shaking hands pressed to her still flat stomach. The healer had just left, confirmation ringing in her ears. Pregnant. She was carrying Eric's child. The child he would reject because the bond had formed too soon. Whatever curse or pact he'd been laboring under, she'd broken it by staying. By demanding answers. By wanting him too much. Through the bond, she felt Eric's presence elsewhere in the castle. A constant ache of love wrapped in grief. He hadn't come to her chambers once since that night. Hadn't spoken to her except through messengers. The court whispered about a sudden coldness between the king and queen. They didn't understand. The bond let her feel his love like a living thing in her chest. But love wasn't always enough. Sometimes it came with a price neither of them could pay. Bella made her decision. She packed a single bag in the dead of night, leaving behind her crown, her title, everything but the life growing inside her. Eric's love would destroy them all. Whatever consequences awaited his broken vow, she wouldn't let their child pay for it. The mate bond screamed as she slipped through the servant's entrance, but she wrapped it tight and buried it deep. She would run. She would hide. She would protect their baby, even if it meant protecting it from its own father. Bella had been in the cottage for 2 weeks when she heard the footsteps on the path. She froze at the wash basin, water dripping from her hands. The remote cabin sat deep in the northern woods, miles from any village. No one should have been able to find her. She'd covered her tracks, used every trick Lily had taught her about hiding from magical tracking. But she'd forgotten about the bond. The door opened. Eric stood in the threshold, chest heaving like he'd run the entire way. His hair was wild, clothes travel-stained. He looked half feral and entirely desperate. "Don't," Bella said, backing toward the far wall. "Don't come any closer." "Bella." Her name broke on his lips. Then he was across the room, dropping to his knees before her, arms wrapping around her waist. His face pressed against her stomach, still flat, but he'd know. The bond would have told him. "Thank the gods," he whispered. "Thank the gods you're safe. Both of you." Bella's hands hovered over his hair, confused. "You're not angry." "Angry?" He pulled back to stare up at her, and his eyes were wet. "You're carrying my child. Our child. How could I possibly be?" His voice cracked. "I thought I'd lost you. When I woke and you were gone, when I felt you running through the bond, I thought. You said you were sorry." The words tumbled out. "You looked at me like touching me had destroyed everything. Like I was not sorry for loving you." Eric surged to his feet, cupping her face in shaking hands. "Never sorry for that. Bella, I've been in love with you since the moment you walked down that aisle. Every day of these 7 years has been torture. Staying away from you, denying what we both felt, it was killing me." "Then why?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Why did you look so horrified? Why have you been avoiding me?" Something shuddered in his expression. "There are things I can't explain. Not yet. But you have to believe." He pressed his forehead to hers. "I want this baby. I want you. I want the life we should have had from the beginning." Through the bond, she felt the truth of it. His love was a wildfire in her chest, fierce and consuming. But underneath it lurked something else. Fear. And a grief so profound it staggered her. "You're lying to me," she whispered. "About something." "I'm protecting you." His thumbs brushed away her tears. "Both of you. That's all I've ever tried to do. I don't need protection. I need the truth." "I know." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "Gentle now, reverent. And someday I'll tell you everything. But right now, just let me have this. Let me be happy about our child. Please." Bella wanted to push, wanted to demand answers. But the exhaustion of the past weeks, the relief of having him here, the hormones already wreaking havoc on her emotions, it all crashed over her at once. "Stay," she said. "At least stay with me. Wild horses couldn't drag me away." Eric lifted her into his arms, carrying her to the narrow bed. He curled around her protectively, one large hand splayed across her stomach. "I'm going to be a father," he murmured, wonder bleeding into his voice. "We're going to have a family." Through the bond, Bella felt his joy, pure and radiant and painfully temporary. She pressed closer, trying not to wonder what shadow was coming for them, trying not to feel the countdown ticking in his heartbeat. The months that followed were the happiest of Bella's life, and somehow that made them more terrifying. Eric transformed the cottage into a home. He reinforced the walls, installed proper windows, built a cradle from oak he'd felled himself. Bella would wake to find him already working, sawing, hammering, his shirt discarded in the morning heat. When she'd waddle out with tea, he'd pull her into his arms and press kisses to her growing belly. "Good morning, little one," he'd murmur against her skin. "Your mother is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." "I'm enormous," Bella protested, but she was glowing. She knew she was. For the first time in 7 years, she felt wanted, cherished, whole. They spent evenings by the fire, Eric's hands splayed across her stomach, feeling their child kick. "Strong," he'd say with fierce pride. "Just like you. Or stubborn like you." Bella would laugh, threading her fingers through his, refusing to listen to reason. But sometimes she'd catch him staring at her with such devastating sadness that it stole her breath. The bond would pulse with longing and loss, and when she'd ask what was wrong, he'd just shake his head and kiss her until she forgot the question. She found the letters by accident. Bella had been searching for the quilt she'd been sewing when she discovered the loose floorboard beneath their bed. Inside lay a stack of parchment, Eric's bold handwriting covering page after page. My dearest child, you will never know me, but I need you to know this. You were wanted. More than air, more than anything. You were loved from the moment I learned of your existence. Her hands trembled as she read further. Your mother is everything good in this world. She has a laugh that sounds like music, and a heart so vast it could hold kingdoms. When you are old enough to understand, tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I would have stayed if I could. I'm writing this because I won't be there to teach you myself. How to be strong. How to be kind. How to love with everything you have, even when it costs you everything. Bella's vision blurred with tears. Know that wherever I am thinking of you both. Every moment. Every breath. The love I have for you and your mother, it transcends realms, transcends time. No distance could diminish it. Be brave, little one. Take care of your mother. She will tell you that she's strong, and she is, but she'll need you. Love her for me. Love her enough for both of us. Your father, Eric. You weren't supposed to find those. Bella turned to find Eric in the doorway, expression raw. How long? Her voice broke. How long have you known you wouldn't be here? Since before we married. He crossed to her, pulling her into his arms even as she tried to push away. Since the moment I made my choice. What choice? What did you do? I can't tell you. He pressed his face into her hair. Not yet. But Bella, please believe. These months with you have been worth it. Worth everything that's coming. I'd make the same choice 1,000 times if it meant having this. Having you. Having our child, even for a moment. You're scaring me. She clutched his shirt, feeling her belly shift between them. Their baby, restless and unaware of the doom hanging over them all. I know. His voice fractured. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. That night, he held her closer than ever. Through the bond, she felt his love like a physical weight, desperate, eternal, already grieving. Outside, the first winter snow began to fall. And inside Bella's womb, their child prepared to be born into a world where happiness was always borrowed, and love came with impossible prices. The labor came with the first thaw of spring. Bella gripped Eric's hand hard enough to leave marks, her screams echoing through the cottage. He pressed kisses to her sweat-soaked forehead, whispering encouragement, but through the bond she felt his terror. Not for her, for what came after. One more push, the village midwife urged. The head is crowning. Bella bore down with everything she had, and then, crying, the fierce, indignant wail of new life. A son, the midwife laughed, laying the squirming bundle on Bella's chest. A perfect, beautiful son. Bella sobbed, cradling the tiny body against her. He had Eric's dark hair, already thick, and when he opened his eyes, storm gray, like his father's. Hello, she whispered. Hello, my love. Eric leaned over them both, one finger stroking their son's impossibly small hand. When the baby gripped it, his face crumpled. Alexander, he said hoarsely. His name is Alexander. Alexander, Bella repeated, and through her exhaustion, through her joy, she felt the bond surge with Eric's anguish. Eric, what? The cottage door opened. No one had knocked. The midwife gasped, stumbling backward. In the threshold stood a woman who didn't belong to the mortal world. Too beautiful, too luminous, too other. Her hair flowed like moonlight, her eyes were violet twilight, and power radiated from her like heat from a forge. Faye. 10 years, the woman said, her voice like bells and breaking glass. That was our bargain, Lycan King. Resist your mate for 10 years, and the betrothal between us would dissolve. You would be free. Eric stepped between the Fae woman and his family, shoulders rigid. It's been 8 years. I still have. You claimed her. The Fae woman's smile was cruel. I can smell the bond. You failed in year 8, which means our original pact stands. Her eyes fixed on the baby in Bella's arms. The firstborn child of your bloodline belongs to me. No. The word tore from Bella's throat. She clutched Alexander tighter, his newborn cries piercing the air. You can't have him. He's mine. The debt must be paid. The Fey woman raised one elegant hand. Wait. Eric's voice cracked like thunder. There's another way. Take me instead. The Fey woman paused, head tilting with predatory interest. You. I'm worth more than an infant. Eric's hands clenched at his sides. A Lycan King, bound to your service for eternity. Surely that's more valuable than a child you'd have to raise. Eric, no. Bella struggled to rise, still weak from labor. An eternity of service, the Fey woman mused. Bound to the Unseelie court. You would never see this realm again. Never hold your son. Never touch your precious mate. I know. Eric didn't turn around. If he looked at them, Bella knew he'd break. Do we have a bargain? Don't do this, Bella sobbed. Please. We'll find another way. We'll. There is no other way. Finally, Eric turned. He crossed to her, cupped her face with shaking hands. I love you. I have always loved you. Every breath, every heartbeat, it's been yours. He kissed her then, soft, reverent, final. Then he bent and pressed his lips to Alexander's forehead. Be strong, my son. Protect your mother. The bargain is struck, the Fey woman declared, and silver chains materialized around Eric's wrists, glowing with ancient magic. No! Bella screamed, but Eric was already walking toward the door, toward the woman who would steal him away forever. Eric, please. He looked back once, and through the bond she felt it. Love like an ocean, vast and endless, crashing over her in waves. Then the door closed, and he was gone. 3 years later, Bella sat at her desk in the royal study, moonlight spilling across parchment covered in her careful script. She'd returned to the castle 6 months after Eric's disappearance. The kingdom needed a ruler, and Alexander needed stability. The court had been shocked to find their barren queen returning with a dark-haired son and no husband, but one look at the child's storm-gray eyes silenced most questions. He was undeniably Eric's. Those who whispered about the absent king learned quickly not to do so in Bella's presence. Mama! A small voice came from the doorway. Alexander stood there in his nightshirt, clutching the wooden wolf Eric had carved. At 3 years old, he looked heartbreakingly like his father. The same strong jaw, the same serious expression. You should be sleeping, little love. Bella held out her arms and he climbed into her lap, fitting perfectly against her chest. I had the dream again. Alexander's small fingers traced the claiming mark on her neck, faded now, but never gone. About the man with the sad eyes. Bella's throat tightened. Through the bond, still intact, still singing softly in her chest, she sometimes felt Eric's presence. Distant, aching, alive. Tell me about him. He says he loves us. Alexander yawned against her shoulder. He says to be brave. He's right. She kissed his dark hair, breathing in the scent of him, pine and something wild. Lycan, like his father. You are so brave, Alexander. So strong. Will he ever come home? The question pierced her heart. Someday, she whispered. I promise. After she'd tucked Alexander back into bed, Bella returned to her desk. The letter lay unfinished, as they always were. She'd been writing to Eric for 3 years now, documenting their son's first steps, his first words, every milestone Eric was missing. She didn't know if he could feel them through the bond. Didn't know if her words reached him somehow in whatever dark realm held him captive. But she wrote anyway, because the alternative was accepting his absence as permanent. And Bella refused to accept that. My love, Alexander asked about you again tonight. He dreams of you. I think the bond connects you even now. He has your stubbornness, your sense of honor. Yesterday he insisted on sharing his breakfast with a stray dog, declaring that protectors help those who can't help themselves. You would be so proud. The court thinks I've made peace with your sacrifice. They believe I've accepted my role as widowed queen, raising our son alone. They're wrong. I've spent these 3 years studying ancient texts, fey magic, every legend about breaking impossible bargains. The Royal Library has become my second home, and I've corresponded with witches, scholars, even a banished fae who owed me a favor. There are whispers of loopholes, ways to challenge an unseelie bond. It will take time, years, perhaps. But I have something the fae woman didn't account for when she took you. I have our son. I have hope. And I have a love that transcends realms. You sacrificed everything to save us. Now let me return the favor. I don't know how yet, but I will find a way into the fae realm. I will challenge that woman's claim. I will bring you home to your family. Until then, know this. Alexander grows stronger every day. The kingdom prospers. And I carry you with me always, in every heartbeat, every breath, every moment of joy and sorrow. Wait for me, my love, however long it takes. This story isn't over. Yours, eternally, Bella. She sealed the letter and pressed it to her chest, feeling the bond pulse with distant warmth. Somewhere, across impossible distances, Eric's heart still beat in rhythm with hers. And someday, God's willing, she would find him. She would bring him home. Their love story demanded nothing less.
If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel for more werewolf romance tales, alpha kings, rejected mates, and powerful omega stories. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Leave a comment below telling me what you thought of Bella and Eric's story. Could Eric had prevented this? By telling Bella. Your support means everything and helps me create more content like this. Thank you for reading and I'll see you in the next. Your hopeless romantic, Amora.